Good
morning, members. It's time to start our meeting. We have formed a quorum, and welcome to this morning meeting of PWSC in the 2017-18 legislative session. As at the last meeting, we have approved 42 items with a total funding of $94.226 billion. Today we are going to discuss the outstanding item carried forward from the last meeting. The funding proposal would be for an amount of $182.8 million. If this is approved, then the cumulative number of approved items will be 43, with a total funding of $94.488 billion. Disregarding the $2.674 billion for land acquisition and computerization project grants, the total funding for projects will stand at $91.7348 billion. I would like to remind members that if you have direct or indirect pecuniary interest in relation to today's item, please disclose the nature of your interest in accordance with Rule 83A of the Rules of Procedure before you speak. I also like to remind members of the requirement under Rule 84 of the ROP in respect of voting when you have a direct pecuniary interest. First item, PWSC 2018-1915, Regulation 458 RO. The recommendation is to upgrade 458 RO and 68 RE to Category 8 at an estimated cost of $49.7 million and $133.1 million in money of the day prices, respectively. We started our discussion on the 28th of May, and now we'll continue with the discussion of this item. In attendance to answer members' questions, we have Under Secretary for Home Affairs, Mr. Jack Chan, Assistant Director of Home Affairs, Ms. Eugenia Chung, the District Officer Kwun Tong, Mr. Steve Jia, District Officer Wan Chai, Mr. Rick Chan, Mr. Martin Guan, Chief Engineer, works at JD, Mrs. Alice Chung, Chief Project Manager, ASD, Mr. Chris Liu, the Chief Project Manager, ASD, Ms. Lai Mei Ling, Chief Leisure Manager, LCSD, Ms. Becky Lee, Chief Leisure Manager, LCSD, and two District Council Chairman, Ms. Dr. Benny Chan, from Kwun Tong District Council, and Mr. Stephen Ng from Wan Chai District Council. The two chairmen have actually attended our meetings for a number of times in the past couple of years. Last time, 4 members asked some questions. Let's continue with this round. Mr. Ma Fong Guok, the first round, 4 minutes. Thank you, Chairman. I don't really want to spend any more time of the committee's meeting. The two items are closely related to people's livelihood. The previous CE proposed these projects, these funding initiatives was mentioned in 2012, 2013. 5 years has passed, and some have not yet been implemented. I support them. For this Kwun Tong Promenade project, it was proposed in 2012. I have had the opportunity to officiate some activities there. At first, the activities were for daytime period. Now there are also activities in the evening. For the Moreton Terrace project, those who are affected have been given some other facilities, such as the reprovisioning of the volleyball court. The district Council has consulted widely, and a consensus has been formed. There should be no further delay to the project. Here, I just want to make a point that such projects which are not of a major scale will have to suffer so long a delay. There is 3 terms of the District Council and 2 terms of the SAR government. Well, the initiative aims at giving the empowering the districts to respond to community needs. So I would like to see if there's a possibility to expedite the whole process so that people of these districts can be benefited earlier. Undersecretary, or the signature project scheme for the district is a scheme for which the initiative should come from the districts, and the districts would try to form consensus and consult their people in the districts before taking forward the proposals. And there is a need to have advanced preparations for the works, and but all in all, the overall progress of the signature project scheme is smooth. We have 23 projects approved by the Finance Committee. There are 2 in Kwai Ching and Tuen Mun, one on healthcare service, the other on youth service, have been fully implemented with rather good results. And there are 3 of the works projects have been completed in Meifu, Sham Shui Po, the Promenade of Central and Western District, and Wong Tai Shin Plaza. These 3 have been completed. The other 10 odd projects have commenced work. Most of them will be completed later this year and early next year. We have 3 outstanding projects. We have the 2 here in Wan Chai and Kwun Tong, and another one is the service project for the Southern District. This Southern District project will be the subject of an item before the FC for approval today. Mr. Tanya Chan. There are certain fees for the projects after the completion of the scheme. It's $1.8 million for the fountain in Kwun Tong. That is in paragraph 10. And the recurrent expenditure for the modern terrace project is $4.9 million. Well, we all want to be reasonable and try to get it approved through reasoning. So I would like to know what is involved in the recurrent expenditures of $1.8 million and $4.9 million. I cannot find the paragraph, but I did see that that there were trees in the vicinity of the modern terrace site, although no trees would be removed. But there are basement or underground space for E&M facilities. Would there be any impact cost to the trees, the roots of the trees, and so on? Can we get some elaboration? Undersecretary, Ms. Chen is correct about the trees. There are a number of, there are 5 trees there. We have tried to avoid damaging the trees in the design. They will not be felled or moved. Are we talking about the trees in this diagram? Annex 2 to Enclosure 2, sort of artist impression. A number of trees in a grip-like pot. Under Secretary, these are 5 existing trees, which will be retained. All right, recurrent expenditure. Mainly is for the maintenance, electricity, and manpower. I'll ask the 2 district officers to explain further. Mr. Chair, Kwun Tong District Officer, the $1.8 million of recurrent expenditure was also mentioned in at the Home Affairs Panel meeting in 2017, the 21st of December 2017. This will involve security maintenance, the chemical used to clean the water music fountains. For $300,000 for security, the $1 million, and so on for maintenance. Wan Chai District Officer, the recurrent expenditure for this project is $4.9 million. The Home Affairs Department will hire contract staff, and we have to pay for the electricity and telephone lines, and there will be the maintenance of the facility, and the EMSD will be responsible for the repair and maintenance of E&M. There's also a community farm on the rooftop, and we will purchase the material used by gardeners and users. Mr. Alvin Young. Paragraph 10 for the Kwun Tong project is $1.8 million. I want to know what will be spent on water tariff. In recent days, we have had some very hot weather, and water levels in our reservoirs have dropped very significantly. So I would like to know more about the water consumption level there. Kwun Tong District Officer. I'll ask our colleague from the ASD to respond. ASD. Mrs. Chan. The water in the music fountains is 270 cubic meters. The water will be reused through recycling. The actual consumption of level would depend on the frequency of cleaning, and we would try everything to conserve water consumption and maintain high level of water efficiency. So you are talking about the capacity of the music fountains, 270 cubic meters. But there will be loss through the operations. So Mr. Young is asking about the water that would be so-called consumed or lost in the operation of the music fountains. Depending on the weather, there will be, of course, evaporation of the water. It's about 550 cubic meters per annum. What is the water tariff involved? 550 cubic meters. What does it translate into tariff? I don't think LCSD, well, perhaps LCSD can explain. Ms. Lai. Through internal arrangement, LCSD is not required to pay for the water, and it's waived. Well, now it's very hot, and reservoirs are seeing the water levels decreasing very fast, so we all want to conserve. So I'm concerned about the water consumption here. But if it's free, that means that you can be relaxed about it, and you can use it as liberally as you want. So what's the cost of the water consumed? Although you are not required to pay it, but what will be the tariff if you have to pay for it? Undersecretary, I've heard the members' comments. We'll pay attention to this, and we would always remember that we would conserve water, we'll recycle the water, and make sure that the consumption is as optimal as possible. Well, of course, in the future, we would observe the water consumption continuously. Mr. Wu Chi-wai, 4 minutes. In the Newtown, Shotting Newtown Plaza and the City Gate, there are the water fountains. The one at the Newtown Plaza has been cancelled.
For the City Gate, I think the water is on, or is not really a fountain. So it shows that the concept of the music fountain appears to be less. How should I put it? It has become less popular among the public. We've seen in many housing estates and public housing estates where they have these water bodies as decoration, as a form of, as a means to as part of the landscape. But very often we've seen these facilities being, abandoned, or sometimes they will only put water there. So for the Kwun Tong Music Fountain, we are spending $50 million to erect this installation. So what purpose, what practical purpose does it really serve, and how attractive is it? And is it actually contrary to the social trend?
There
have been controversies over the Kwun Tong Music Fountain, and I think this is the major concern. And secondly, according to the information you supplied us, the annual recurring expenditure amounts to $1.8 million. If the $1.8 million was spent on the maintenance and servicing of the facility, I think this is unimaginable. I don't see, for installations like this, if they're frequently used, how can they break down? Or what is involved is just the water jets and the pumps. So are there certain items which can break down so easily? Otherwise, for these water fountains, why is it that it's going to cost $1.8 million in terms of service and maintenance per year? Another question is whether you intend to actually operate the water fountains throughout the year, or will it only operate in the summer season? If it's going to be operated throughout the year, people will have a different idea about how the water fountain is used. So the water fountain is located on a lawn, and for people who jog along the promenade, every available space or at the ground level, should be treasured. So I think using the site to install a water fountain is not therefore worth it. I also agree with Mr. Wu that the public really would like to love to have the lawn there, and they don't want large portions of the lawn would be sacrificed. There is no lack of lawns in the Kwun Tong Promenade, so we're only taking away part of the area to build the water fountain. As for whether or not the water fountains are out of fashion, we've seen on the internet recently that in April 2018 at Hammer Hill a water fountain was commissioned. And I learned from the internet it's very popular amongst the public. People are very happy that in Hammer Hill they now have this very large water fountain. In 2010, or rather it was in Busan, in California and Paris at the Disney theme parks, they also have water fountains. So at least internationally, water fountains are still very popular. But I also agree with Mr. Wu that in future we need to ensure that it will stay attractive. But you don't have to worry, because other than the water fountain, there is also a play area where people and children and adults can actually interact with the water bodies there, and there are tunnels too. So it should be a lot of fun. And also, this location is very popular amongst the public. If we erect a water fountain there, I think it's going to be even more popular. Regarding the other parts of Mr. Wu's question, perhaps you can follow up in your next round. Mr. Leung Chee Chung, 4 minutes. Thank you. The signature project scheme for the district councils, I think it started in 2013. It's been such a long delay already. And I think for the Kwun Tong project, we may have to wait for 10 years before we see, any outcome. My impression that this is due to the filibustering in this council. I think these projects were submitted to this council last year, and it has been delayed. But during the current term, I don't see any filibustering, but still I see a lot of nitpicking. So far, I think, well, there have been debates as to whether or not whether these projects are popular. Of course, when the decision was made, then these projects were very popular. But I'd like to ask the chairman of the two district councils whether or not they still are attractive or popular. But I think that this council has already decided on these signature projects. I'm a district councillor myself. In my district, we arrived at the conclusion after extensive consultation. When they were put to this council, I think it was right that we raised questions, but if we were to delay the passage of this project, that would be really regrettable. I think the waterfront promenade is rather unique in Hong Kong. It's not only a landmark for Kwun Tong. It could actually be an iconic landmark for the whole of Hong Kong. If this project were aborted, it would really be a pity. And for the modern Terrace project in Wen Chai, a district councillor, Madam Yeung Shuk Ying, has submitted a letter. If I don't refer to other information and just read her letter, it would appear that the Wen Chai District Council is totally ignorant. The public don't even have a volleyball court to use, and you are now proposing to build a community hall there. But the department told us that there are substitutes available. So I think this is too one-sided. And when it comes to this council, members may simply, agree with her and then object to the proposal. So I'd like to ask the two district council chairmen. The Southern District has already, conceded and amended the original project. Why are you, sticking to your two projects and not conceding? Mr. Chen Zhenban, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Leung, for your concern. For the promenade water fountain in Kwun Tong, The district council has gone through many rounds of consultation, and the task force under the district council had many meetings before we decided on this project. Mr. Leung was worried that with the passage of time, and we now have such a long delay. But in July 2015, we conducted another survey, and we found that many people are really looking forward to this water fountain, especially people living in Laguna City. They are really looking forward to it because it can actually create a water-friendly, culture, and kids will really love it. When we, conducted surveys on site, more than 85% of the respondents would like to have a water fountain there. And also, when you look across Kwun Tong from the cruise terminal, it's really a beautiful view in the evening. Thank you. If I read Madam Young's letter, I think what she's saying in this letter is not accurate. We're talking about, $140 million. That's not correct. With the public funds involved, it's only $100 million. $40 million will be donated by the Jockey Club Charity Trust. And she claimed that our open space is being eroded, and I don't agree. Even if we were to use a volleyball court to build a community center, we still have 2 other volleyball courts, except that they will be re-provisioned to the Victoria Park, and they will be jointly used as the handball court. The Wan Chai District Council attaches a lot of importance to recreational facilities in Wan Chai. We're actively looking for, places to re-provision the volleyball court when the plans at a more mature stage. We will be able to provide, another volleyball court for the residents to use. So I think what Madam Young is saying is not really true. After we have the signature project and the funding of $100 million, the Wan Chai District Council had conducted a large-scale consultation in 2013, and we consulted all the residents in the vicinity, the users of the community facilities, those who go to the community hall. We've also consulted the 3 area committees and many non-profit making organizations and performing groups, and they all support this proposal. In 2014, we had another extensive consultation, and for the plan itself, we have designed it not just as a community center. It will also be a gallery and also a community garden at the rooftop, adopting very environmental design so that we can provide for more cultural and recreational, venues for the residents to enjoy. Mr. Gary Fan. Since 2013, when we have embarked on the signature project scheme, it's been implemented in different districts. I am a Sai Kung district councillor myself. Well, the project has been very successful. For example, one example would be Kwai Chung, but it has been rather controversies in other districts because they are regarded as mini white elephants. Some district councillors and electrical members may be generalists, but they sometimes may actually, make decisions which turn out to be not very cost effective. Regarding the building of a water fountain along Kwun Tong Promenade, it has always been controversial. The last time, I think we were criticized for the lack of consultation and that there would be a waste of community resources. That is the Kwun Tong Promenade. The current planning is not so desirable. For example, in the District Council publicity pamphlet, they want to turn this project into a new tourist, destination to support the development of tourism and the Kwun Tong District. The DB district councillor said that the water fountain will become a landmark of Kwun Tong to attract tourists. So my question, Chairman, is whether or not developing tourism is compatible with the original intention of the signature project scheme. And very often we say that district council represents public opinion, so are we. And when there's a difference in opinion between us, how do we deal with that? In paragraph 11, we understand that some district councils have conducted surveys. According to, for example, the East Kowloon Concern Group, they told us that this is actually a survey conducted by the DAB. The chairman of the Kwun Tong District Council said 85% of the respondents supported the proposal. The DAB, according to their own survey, claimed that 85% of respondents supported the building of a interactive water fountain at Kwun Tong Promenade.
806 people were interviewed, but the methodology was called into question. In 2015, the concern group in Kwun Tong interviewed 1,600 people. More than 50% of them did not know that there was such a project in Kwun Tong. And after they have known more about the project, more people were in objection. Therefore, 85% were in objection. Was the survey done in 2017, or is the survey mentioned in paragraph 11 done by the DAB? So 2 questions, Undersecretary, on the question of the opinion survey. I'll ask the Kwun Tong District officer to respond from the perspective of the district office there. And then I'll see if the chairman of the district council would like to supplement. District officer? A lot of views were received by the Kwun Tong District Council, and we said some of the... And there was a survey carried out by a DAB, the local branch. And there was another survey in 2015. And I would like to invite Mr. Chan to supplement. I thank Mr. Gary Fan for his questions. From consultation to completion, I think we have put everything in the paper. We consulted the area committees. We considered more than 10 options, and 2 were shortlisted. One of them is about to be completed. Many people in Kwun Tong are waiting earnestly for approval to be given by this council. In paragraph 11, it was a survey in 2015 or 2013 or 2015. I said it was it's July 2015. 2015 July in July. The 10 most favorite buildings selection. And this interactive music fountains is number 5. So it shows that people are waiting anxiously for this to be implemented. But of course, if you do not do this in Kwun Tong, the respondents might not even know where the fountains are. But for Kwun Tong residents, it's something that people are earnestly and eagerly waiting for which approval of this council would be needed. I wouldn't say that the Southern District Council gave way and carry out something for livelihood. I would say that they just heed the public opinion. I don't know why this project in Kwun Tong has been dragging on for years, and still you are not willing to listen to the public. There's something quite unreasonable here. There are pro-establishment members who said that because the Pandams filibustered, as a result, the cost has risen, and now this is still outstanding. Since we are talking about a proposal in 2013, now it's 2018. There's been no change to the construction cost. In 2017, we were were given the annual recurrent expenditure, which is put at $1.8 million. But we don't know on what basis this is arrived at. We don't know how the recurrent expenditure is calculated. And then but there's no reason why the cost of $49 million will remain unchanged. If we just look at inflation or minimum wage in 2013, it was 28 hours. Then it went up to 30. Now it's 34.50. It seems that we're not getting the full information here. I hope the district councils should tell us whether in the past 4 or 5 years has there been any adjustment to the costs of the project. Under Secretary, actually we touched on this issue a couple of days ago. It was answered by my colleagues in the ASD. I would like to ask my ASD colleagues to respond to this question of cost, and the district officer to respond to the question of recurrent expenditure. We have do some fine-tuning and minor adjustments to the design so that the cost will remain more or less the same. Actually, there's a small difference between the current cost level and the previous one. Well, it's because we have done some minor adjustment to the design. It was answered yesterday. Yes, I know. So we know a little bit more. It's because of the design. That was the answer given last time as well. But can you give us a paper on the compromise in design that you have made? The change is not significant. It's some minor adjustments to the fountains. What about recurrent expenditure? E&M maintenance costs is incurred for the plant room, the jets, and parts of the machine. It's an estimate. It's done on the basis of estimate. What is the year of the in the estimation? What's the year you adopt in the estimation process? I think it's in relation to the recent period. So it's on the basis of the minimum wage level. Well, I asked a very clear question. $1.8 million and 200,000 on manpower. So there's no need. You don't need to make an adjustment. Mr. Ao Lok Hin, I thank Dr. Jiang Chung Tai for doing justice to Southern District Council. We didn't give in. We agreed on the basis of consensus to modify the proposal. As a district councillor, I think in implementing the signature project in the district, it's not impossible to forge a consensus among members from different political groups. And now, because of the lack of consensus, many projects are controversial. Let's return to this water fountains project. I've heard from the Kwun Tong District officer that the opinion survey was conducted by the DAB. And I can share with you my experience with the Southern District Council. The survey was done by the District Council itself. That's much more objective, because that would have to do with the design of the questionnaire. For example, you ask people to rank 10 major buildings in Kwun Tong. Of course, the water fountains will feature as one of them. And also, this is about development of tourism, not about meeting local aspiration and needs. So the councillors from different parties should come up with something more objectively acceptable. So that's why I think the opinion survey was not very objective. And certainly something can be learned from other district councils. And many members have talked about water bills, water tariff. I've heard the answers, but I think it's not quite reasonable as a response. The recurrent expenditure is $1.8 million. Whenever we ask questions about the Kwun Tong project, the interactive fountains in Kwun Tong, we asked Mr. Poon Chun Yun, a DAB member. I used to live in that area, in one of the housing estates. Are the water fountains always switch on? Of course not. So can you tell us whether it will be in operation during the summer or throughout the year? And you just simply say that it's $1.8 million per annum. So please tell us how long it will be switch on in the year. You don't have time. You haven't got sufficient time to get an answer. Of course, I will reserve this question for the next round. Of course, you can press the button again. Of course, there are some rules regulating the switching on and off of the water fountains. I'll ask the district officer to respond. There will be two shows, 7 p.m. and 9 p.m. in the evening. As for the fountain that people can have a direct access to, there will be in operation during the summer. Well, what months are we talking about? What months? We don't have a specific month for the time being. Without knowing which months the fountains will be on, you can calculate that it's $1.8 million of recurrent expenditure. Well, that's remarkable. Mr. Wilson, we started to discuss this project in our last term. It was approved by the District Council in 2013. I'm aware another hat as the District Councillor in Kwun Tong. In early 2013, through a bottom-up approach, we have been listening to public opinion. There were many different project proposals, and then the District Council unanimously decided that there should be two projects. One is the installation of lifts at Sung Wen Street, and the other is this one, water fountains. Once again, I hope members would respect the decision made by the District Council. Yes, there are different opinion surveys involving different methodologies with different sample sizes. In 2017 and in July 2015, there was an opinion survey. Asking Kwun Tong residents about their views. And one of these selected projects, one of the projects favored by the residents is this one. So further delay is not in the interest of Kwun Tong residents. The Kwun Tong Promenade is getting more and more popular, both at night and during the day. There are many users. We hope this project can start quickly. I have a question for the administration as well. How can you make sure that the timetable as set out in the paper can be achieved? We know people living near Kwun Tong are expecting these water fountains projects can be realized quickly. With the approval of this council, we'll be able to start the project closer to the end of this year for completion in 2020.
Chairman, I support both projects. For the Kwun Tong water fountain, I think the project should come on stream as soon as possible. We all know that in Hong Kong we live in a very crowded environment, and many people tend to spend spend too much time at home, and they would like to go out for recreation. The fact that the Kwun Tong District Council can come up with the ideas of using its resources to build this water fountain, other than providing convenience for Kwun Tong residents, it will also provide, this facility for the enjoyment of residents from other districts. And I don't see any reason why people should object to it. Regarding the water charges, the government already explained that it's not going to be expensive, and the project is only costing $50 million, and in return it can provide for this recreation facility for the residents. I think it should be supported. I also have a question regarding the cancellation of the pedestrian prison in Mong Kok. The water promenade in Kwun Tong is rather long. The government was considering allowing young people to do some business there, or use the promenade for people to stage performances there. With the cancellation of the pedestrian prison, there could be another venue to replace it, on the basis that it doesn't affect the living environment of the residents. I wonder whether that could be done, and if so, would you explore that possibility? Deputy Secretary, thank you, Mr. Yu. The waterfront promenade indeed is very popular for the residents living in the vicinity, and people go to work in Kwun Tong and during lunchtime and in the evening. Many of them go to the promenade. According to our statistics, about 10,000 people go to the promenade, not to mention those people who go there over the weekends. If you've been there over the holidays, you'll find that there are different types of people, including young people, performing the musical instruments, or doing hip hop dancing, and also some of them would be selling wares there and so on. If we're going to have the music fountain there, I'm sure the ambience or the atmosphere will be even better. As to whether or not this is the right venue, a suitable venue for street performances, we will need to go back and look into that. Although the promenade is rather long, but it's not very wide. There is a jogging trail, and many people would also walk there, or people would be lying on the lawn enjoying the sunshine. If we're going to stage large-scale performances, it could be rather noisy. It could also be very crowded. So these are the things that we need to consider. But for the time being, it is the fact that the promenade is very popular. Of course, I was saying, as I said, we shouldn't cause any nuisance to the residents nearby. And it should be on that premise that you consider that possibility, so that we can ensure that we can make optimal use of the promenade. Okay, I think the Deputy Secretary has heard you. Mr. Ray Chen, 4 minutes. Thank you. Mrs. Carrie Lam, before the Executive Council meeting, made a speech, thanking you, saying that we've already passed many public work projects and that we have been very efficient. So what I'd like to point out is that how the government arranged the public work projects for our scrutiny. I think the initiative in the hands of the government. When we propose that they will start with a more easier project, they say that they won't let electrical interfere with the decisions. when she says now that we will now deal with the easier project, the less controversial projects first, and that's more efficient. That's the decision of the government. Carrie Lam also referred to these two projects that we are discussing today, and I quote from the GIS. If we remember, the so-called $100 million district projects, it was proposed by the last term of the administration. In many districts, these projects were completed, and the district councillor believed that we should allow them to apply for funding. And for those, some members have expressed reservations about this project, but now those could be put on to the agenda. I don't know whether Mrs. Lam has got the timetable right. In the news release, she said 2012, giving the impression that we are causing a longer delay. C.Y. Leung, in the policy address in 2013, proposed the signature project scheme. According to the paper, both projects were only, proposed in 2013, and the so-called bottom-up, committee set up there. Why so was Mrs. Carrie Lam wrong if she got the year wrong? And secondly, I'd like to ask about the Moreton Terrace Community Activity Center. I think the activity center is very small. The stage is only 10 meter long, 5 meter wide. How many people can stand on that stage? Is that stage a standard size stage for a hall of this type, or is it smaller than it? The hall, the government said that it can accommodate 250, but the hall is 10 meter wide, 17.5 meter long, area 177.5 square meters, or 1,707 square feet. If it accommodates 250, the per capita area is about 0.7 meters, 7 meters. So it's not very comfortable. It's very crowded. Now, based on this cost estimate to build the hall, this hall, would you agree that the hall is rather small, and do we have any precedents? Thank you, Mr. Chen, for your questions and your concern about these $100 million worth of projects. First of all, I'd like to thank the two chairmen of the district councils because they've come to LegCo for 17 times already. They spent a lot of time and have put in a lot of efforts in respect of these two projects. And now I'd like to ask the Wan Chai district officer to answer Mr. Chen's question. For the Moreton Terrace Activity Center, there is some constraint because it only has an area of 750 square meters. When we build a community hall, we need to provide for many facilities. Even for this hall, we also need to provide for a stage conference room, control room, dressing room, store room, and so on. So if for this multi-purpose hall, we can accommodate 250 people. It is suitable for small to medium-sized performances. Compared with the Leighton Hill, community hall, it can accommodate 350 people. He's not directly answered my question. That is, compared with similar or comparable community halls, is it particularly small, and is it particularly expensive? Okay, I'll let him answer my question in my next round. Starry Lee. The 18 signature projects were actually, proposed by the last term of administration. Of the 18 districts, 16 have already obtained support by this council. And for these districts, many of these signature projects are more or less completed, and public can now enjoy them. In Central and West, Wan Tai Sin, those projects are coming on stream steadily, except for Kwun Tong and Wan Chai, where they're still being criticized. So I like to express my anger because the opposition camp is filibustering and standing in the way of these two signature projects. They're not respecting the council. And I think this is really, such behavior is unacceptable. You can certainly, make criticisms, but is it really true that these projects are creating so many problems and that they're so unpopular? I think the outcome will prove everything, but you don't allow the project to come on stream. You're you keep delaying this project. So for the two district councils concerned, I think we are not giving them the respect that they deserve, because they are the district council represent public opinion, and they are actually monitored by public opinion. The term of the President District Council will end next year. If there is any further delay, then even if this project were approved, then these two projects will not be completed before the end of the term. I believe this is what's on your mind. I'd like to tell the public that the current situation is not very desirable, not very satisfactory, and it's actually represent a disrespect of the two district councils. There is a division of labor between the district council and LegCo, because the district council is popularly elected. We can disagree with them, but if you keep stalling the projects, you don't even allow them the chance to explain whether that decision is accurate or not. That is the worst arrangement. So I hope the public will see what's happening. You always criticize the community activity center and the water fountain. They may not be the most desirable, projects in your opinion, but nevertheless they are supported by many people. So I think we should learn to respect each other. Don't delay this any further, and do not, get in the way of these two district projects. At least we should allow these two projects to go ahead, so that we improve whether or not they are problematic. I also like to tell the public that we have had many rounds of consultation. When I was chairing the first HAE panel, we already had heard the deputation. So there have been delay after delay. I hope that we can give these two projects the opportunity for them to be completed, so that we can prove who is right. I also like to thank the district councils for insisting on these two projects. You've come here 17 times to reason with us, so I certainly would support these projects. Any response from the Secretary? I'd like to thank Ms. Lee for her comments and her understanding. Mr. Ichifo? I think these two projects have taken so long because at the district council level there have been very strong opposition already. The two district councils did not strive to arrive at a consensus among the different political parties, and that's the reason for the delay. Starling, you talk about filibustering. And when a district councils write in, you say that she's biased. If she's biased, we can have a discussion. And you keep criticizing us for filibustering. You can continue to be the rubber stamp, but our role here is monitor the government's performance, to ask the questions that we need to ask, to ensure that that the money is properly spent. So regarding the open space in Wan Chai, which is being eroded, the chairman said that's not the case. I can give you some examples. The pumping station in Harcourt Road will be relocated to the Lockhart Road playground. The whole open space will be gone. It's a real example that there is an extreme shortage of open space on a per capita basis in Wan Chai. And also the Caroline Hill redevelopment, Caroline Hill site. The Wan Chai District Council is still discussing this this month. Some are proposing that we should move the community hall there. For the Moreton Terrace Activities Center, this was proposed by the last term of the District Council. At that time, there was no plan to redevelop the Caroline Hill site yet. The Permanent Secretary said that for the Caroline Hill site development, the District Council had yet to further discuss how the site is going to be used. And the District Council may need to discuss whether or not we should build a community hall there, and therefore we might be able to save the District Council's money and place the activity center on the Caroline Hill site instead. Shouldn't the District Council discuss that? And for the Modern Terrace Activity Center, in the vicinity of the Modern Terrace, activity center, there has been strong opposition. 80 to 90% of the residents objected to this project. Has the district council, heard that? Mr. Ng Kam Chun. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Hai, for the question. Regarding whether we can find an alternative site to build a community hall, in the case of Wan Chai, it's rather difficult because Wan Chai is already, densely, it's already, fully developed. So you're ruling out the Caroline Hill site. You have such a good site at Moreton Terrace. If we have the funding approval bilateral, we can go ahead with the project this year, and the project can be complete by 2020. And shouldn't take that more expedient route, or should we keep on waiting indefinitely for a possible site to build the next community hall? I think the Moreton Terrace option is better.
Mr. Ng Kam Chun, District Council Chairman. Thank you for your question. Mr. Hui, on the question of relocation of the water pumping station from to Lockhart Road, from Harcourt Road to Lockhart Road, we have talked about having an integrated design so that the recreational facility that can also be provided without taking up a lot of space. As for the objection from people around the Moreton Terrace, yes, from our opinion survey, there were people in objection, but it was a minority. I don't know why that councillor talked about very significant opposition. Even the last term of district council, this project was supported. 100% of them just supported this community center project. Only one district councillor objected, and that's the one who wrote in. The others are in support. And we have been asked by people in the district why we are still not doing this. And we have a acute shortage of performing venues. Do you know that which district suffer from the most acute shortage of recreational and performance venue in Hong Kong? It's us. We were talking about having a civic center built in at the site of Caroline Hill. I was elected as a district councillor in 1992. And I've discovered that we had to go to the Civic Center in Shenghuan or to Sai Wan Hall Civic Center for our activities. I asked this question of the government, and the government said that there was no space for a community center. And then I asked that to be minuted so that when land was available, we should build a community center. And then we had this opportunity in 1997. That is the Leighton Hill site, which was previously a British garrison site. And we asked for a community hall. And that's why in 2002 we have this community hall. At present, the consultation is being carried out for the Caroline Hill site. We all want to have a civic center there. It's what we want. But how much time is needed from consultation to completion? Well, in the last community center project, it took 11 years from the start to the end. Mr. This is not the Wan Chai District Council meeting, and you are not here to question us. It's for us to put questions to you. Well, you didn't stop him after speaking for 6 minutes. Very simple. Why do we have these two outstanding projects among the 18 districts, different projects? Mr. Ng talked about this back in 1991. What happened back in 1991? Well, there were projects which gave rise to problems later because we didn't put sufficient questions. We didn't query the projects when it was planned and when it was not fully addressed. The controversies have not been addressed. In the past, it was about the volleyball court at Moreton Terrace, which was heavily used by the volleyball players. There was a joint signature campaign to oppose it. Did you know how many people signed that petition, Mr. Ng? Well, I know. 1,000 people jointly signed a petition to raise an opposition. They didn't know that we are going to reprovision the court. They thought it would be cancelled. So now it's the reprovision in Victoria Park, a joint use with the handball court. And we're also trying to find another site to have a new volleyball court. That's where the problem lies. And even earlier, we still receive views from people who are trying to promote sport, who are the star sportsmen of the future. There's a GIC site at Kowloon Hill just next to Moreton Terrace. So I have this question for the Undersecretary. Well, that was a GIC site, and we have approved the demolition of the buildings there. So have you already made up your mind about Kowloon Hill? If you look at the map, the GIC site is just next to this one. Why don't you consider it? As for why we decided to do this at Moreton Terrace, I would like to ask the district officer to explain. Well, I was talking about a macro issue, GIC site at Kowloon Hill. It's just next to this site. Well, the reprovisioning of the volleyball court to Victoria Park is a better arrangement because the volleyball court at Moreton Terrace, there's no spectator stand, and that's one in Victoria Park, and it's closer to the Tin Hau MTR station. It's at a more convenient location than the current one. You didn't hear my question. Why is it that the Kowloon Hill site, the GIC site at Kowloon Hill, cannot be used for this activity center? We have already explained that this is a suitable site. And if funding approval is granted, work can start this year for completion in 2020. There's a very keen and urgent demand for this activities center at Moreton Terrace. Mr. Angel 1, 4 minutes. Chairman, I hope you would uphold consistent principles in chairing the chairman. Ms. Sarili spoke for 4 minutes on her, and it's about her comments. Mr. Lee said most of the projects have been approved. Why are there outstanding projects? Well, it's because they are controversial. It's simple, as simple as that. We're talking about district issues and district projects for district to address district issues. For this music fountains, I'm not strongly objecting to it, but I just think that the design can be further improved. But the more we read this paper from the government, the more I'm enraged. It is said in paragraph 11, an opinion survey. Well, it was the one done by DAB, and the questions were leading. Did you think that there were insufficient recreational facilities? Of course, yes. And do you want more? Yes. And then the number 8, would you like to have water fountains? And there's only one option offered. Don't mislead us saying that it's a very objectively done. You have 10 options and people chose water fountains. So the information provided by the administration should be fairly put. Well, I said to another member that this might be considered, but the idea was not well thought through. And the pro-establishment member said we were filibustering. Most of the projects have been approved, and now you only gave people one option. What about giving a cash handout? Of course, people would say yes. Now the DAB is bragging about this opinion survey, and the administration refers to this opinion survey as if it's a community support. There was another survey carried out, and most of them were in opposition, were in objection. Why didn't the government? There's another one by concern group, East Kowloon Concern Group. And what about, and also water consumption? I haven't heard the answer. And I would also talk about the design. But it was a very good open space. I brought my child to the promenade for enjoyment. But there is a shortage of venue, and we should have multiple use. You know that in Tung Chung, there is a water fountain at City Gate, and also in Disneyland, where the water fountains will be in use, in operation for some time of the year, of the day. Wouldn't it be better arrangement? I'll ask the district officer to further explain how they deal with public opinion in the district. And the water consumption question has been answered, and we believe that annually it's a 550 cubic meters per annum, and we'll try to conserve water as far as possible. And we want to have a water-friendly design. It keeps people away in the design. Yes, children will be allowed to get close. Not the entire water fountains. Why don't you refine the designs and get rid of the controversy as suggested by Mrs. Carrie Lam? Why don't you allow them to answer this question? There are different parts of the water fountains serving different purposes. Time is up, but perhaps we can get some brief answers. I'll defer to my ASD colleagues on the question of design. There are different fountains, music fountains, and one giving shows. Another is for the water activities, and another is water jacks. It's an interactive feature. Even for the fountains which give a performance in response to people passing by, it gives out a wavy form. And like the one at City Gate, if someone gets in, the water jet will be will shoot up. I was just asking for adjustment of the different proportions of the water fountains so as to address the controversy. I'm not trying to answer the question on behalf of the administration, but this question has been answered a number of times. I agree. I did not raise any objection. I agree this particular part. I was just asking about the proportion at present. A large part of the fountains are not for people to get close. Why can't you allow a bigger part for access to the water? Well, the design takes on board various uses and design features. But of course, we have heard from Mr. Wan, so that maybe we can fine-tune the design so that we can allow access by more users. Dr. Fernando Zhang?
Chairman, the signature project. I think we've approved many such projects in the past already, but these two are relatively more controversial. And Carrie Lam said that these are not really livelihood projects. In Kwai Ching, for example, they've spent the resources on helping the residents to have health inspections and treatment. In the Southern District, they gave up the idea of building a seafood restaurant, and instead they built a rehab bus and also an ophthalmological clinic. So in approving these signature projects, we did not lodge any objection. But for Kwun Tong, I understand that it's a district with the highest number of poor people. Before policy convention in Kwun Tong, there are 150,000 poor people. After policy intervention, you still have 100,000. There are more people engaged in scavenging. And also, there's a serious aging problem. There are more than 110,000 elderly persons. To go to Wong Tai Sin, you have a total of 200,000 elderly residents. I'm worried that if you build a water fountain here, of course, it will look really glamorous. But on the other hand, there's a lot of poverty in the community. There are many subdivided flats inside industrial buildings. So you have a big contrast here. On the one hand, we are, we want to develop tourism and provide, recreational facilities for public, and I'm all for that. On the other hand, I see the district council putting so much resources into this glamorous project, while there's so much poverty in the district, so many elderly citizens, waiting for home care services. Many of the basic needs are not met. So when the district council consider how it should use its resources, have you considered, like Kwai Ching and Southern District, using the resources and spending them on the groups which have the greatest need, rather than engaging in such glamorous projects? Thank you, Dr. Zhang. In Kwun Tong, there are two projects: the water fountain, the music fountain. People of different races, age, and so on can go there. The other project is the lift in Shung Yun Street, and the lift tower. The budget for the lift tower is approved, and I think the project will be completed in the third quarter of this year. So it will serve residents in the public housing estates. It links up the public housing estate and the Kwun Tong market for the convenience of the elderly and the handicapped person, because there are lots of slopes. With that lift tower, the elderly residents and those who are handicapped and wheelchair bound can use the lift and come down from the old public housing estates to the city center. So it will really benefit the elderly and the people, at the grassroots level. I'll ask Mr. Chair and the Chairman to further supplement. There were 16 proposals for Kwun Tong at the time. We had very extensive discussion. Some proposals were in respect of services. For example, we discussed whether we can help young people start a business and so on. We work closely with the SWD in Kwun Tong to take care of our residents in Kwun Tong. As you know, the United Christian Hospital has been expanded to serve our residents in Kwun Tong. So the District Council is very concerned about the promotion of social welfare policies, but the provision of recreational facilities and venues is also something that we should take care of. And that's why within the District Council, whether they belong to the Democratic camp, they still agreed that the funding of $100 million should be divided into two parts. One part will be spent on livelihood issues, helping elderly people to move up the slopes, and secondly, to provide this water fountain. So that was the consensus that we arrived at with the support of all the members. Tanya Chen, your third round. Regarding the trees, I hope next time when you provide supplementary information, please give us details about the species, the age of these trees. It will be best that you conduct a tree survey. I'm sure you've done that already. I hope you could provide such information, because I want to know whether you might damage the roots of these trees when you build the basement, because it could be lethal for the trees. And if anything should go wrong happen to the trees, it might affect the passers-by. I don't want to see. I don't want the trees to be sacrificed as you proceed with these projects. I also have another question for Mr. Jack Chan, the Deputy Secretary, regarding the non-recurrent expenditure. Have you worked out how many percent of the non-recurrent expenditure would take up the whole budget? Regarding trees, we'll be happy to provide the details from Ms. Chan. We also know that we will not be hurting any of the trees. During the work period, we will adopt measures to ensure that the trees will not be damaged. Ms. Chen is concerned about the roots of the trees. We're going to build a basement on site. Indeed, we need to be careful so that when we build the basement, we will not damage the roots of the trees. This is something that we will definitely urge our colleagues to ensure that they will be careful. Regarding the other figures Ms. Chen asked for, we can provide for them later. That is for all the projects in the 18 districts. I believe you're referring to the construction costs and the proportion between the ratio between the construction costs and the recurring expenditure. What about the $49 million for Moreton Terrace? Is that relatively expensive? Comparing these two projects, it's about 4% for the water fountain. For the Moreton Terrace project, it's almost 5%. And the $49 million is not a small sum. Compared with the allocation of $100 million, it's quite a large proportion. So I'd like to know whether you have any standards or yardsticks. And for the projects for which you have been approved funding, is the recurring expenditure on this project on the expensive side? I think all these signature projects vary. And that's why I asked my question regarding the percentage. I just want to make it clear so that the Deputy Secretary could be more focused. But my answer is clear enough. I'm just helping the meeting to be able to focus, more focused. Why don't you give me my time? I'll give you your time. Ms. Chan, I think I've been very flexible. You were very flexible. You allowed the chairman of the District Council 6 minutes. I've been here the whole morning. Well, you've also taken more than 3 minutes for your second round. That is flexible. Deputy Secretary, thank you, Ms. Chan. I understand Ms. Chan's question. I agree that we need to look at the nature of each project to assess, to determine how much the recurring expenditure should be. For the water fountain, basically it's an open space. So we don't need to take care of many things. Basically, it's the maintenance of the machinery that would cost most of the money. But the Moreton Terrace Activity Center is a community hall. To manage a community hall would mean that the recurring expenses would be a lot expensive, including the maintenance of the building itself. There will be lifts on the stage, and the maintenance costs were very expensive. There is a community garden. We need to hire staff to look after the hall, and that's why $4.9 million compared with 1.8 in Kwun Tong is reasonable. When we provide the details later on for members, we will provide a fuller account. Alvin Young, 3 minutes. Chairman. Recently, in many parks and squares in Hong Kong, we have mainland women, causing a lot of nuisance to the residents. You now say that the project will become a landmark. I'm worried that you might also attract these mainland women dancing there. In Mongkok, you're going to scrap the pedestrian prison. So I'd like to ask the Commissioner or the Chairman of the Kwun Tong District Council, have you ever thought of this? That is, if the the beauty fountain in Kwun Tong would attract the mainland women who are now, performing in Sai Yong Choi Street, and if they should go there, then how can you ensure that the Kwun Tong Promenade will not become another Sai Yong Choi Street? So this is a management issue. Thank you. The water fountain. Now, if it's not your turn, please kindly not disturb the Secretary. It will be managed by the LCSD. They will adopt the routine management, policies. If there should be any nuisance, our staff will, persuade them to not to do that, and if fail to comply, we will do that. If you've done that, then you won't need to scrap the pedestrian prison in Mongkok. Why don't you? We have experience in dealing with such problems. Mr. Yeung asked about the views of the District Council. I'll ask the Chairman, Mr. Chen, to answer the question. Thank you, Mr. Yeung, for your question. The promenade is located at the waterfront of a business district. It used to be an industrial area, but now we are energizing the waterfront. It used to be where people placed the waste paper. In Phase 1, the District Council spent money for Phase 1 of the energizing Kowloon project. It's proven to be very popular. We have the the flyover where performing groups can apply to stage performances there. There are different artistic groups there, and also there's a lot of space under the flyover. But that, I believe, is not a pedestrian prison. Very often we see families going there during the holidays. Some members have said just now that they would also go there during the holidays. We have confidence in the management by the LCSD. My point is that the original intention was to turn Sai Yong Choi Street into a pedestrian prison so that people can, walk there and spend. But if you could deal with the problem with management, you don't need to scrap the pedestrian prison there. So whether it's the Kwun Tong District Council or the Bureau or the department, are there any ways? I would like to point out that you charge for the right to use the flyover thing, but in Sai Yong Choi Street there's no charge, and many women can put on all kinds of performances. Well, this is indeed a problem which cannot be easily resolved. Please allow our departments some time. We'll learn from past experience to see how we can ensure that we can have a better environment for the waterfront promenade. Mr. Kwun Tong, I really support these two projects. First of all, regarding the music fountain in Kwun Tong, it can really, combine with the promenade and turn the area into a landmark. Like Secretary said, the site used to be a yard for storing, waste paper and cargo loading area. I think spending $49 million is not expensive. I think we should go ahead.
Are we afraid of problems caused by some middle-aged female dancers or the people coming in bus loads or people? Well, if we are concerned about so many problems, well, there's nothing we can do. And for this Moreton Terrace project, we have the central library there. So for an activity centers there, it would tie in nicely. And when it comes to the cost of $130 million, so of course, if it's lower, it's better. But this is a reasonable cost level. And we also have a shelter for street sleepers. And now, why do we want to delay the project when it's something people want? This really are not wise to filibuster. This is something that would benefit the community. I support them. I would like to have them approve quickly. All right. That's just some comments. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. The Undersecretary, the District Council Chairman, and the district officer are saying that the facilities at the Kwun Tong Promenade are popular, are well established. I've been there. There are people working there who would enjoy the facilities after work. The purpose of having signature project is to meet the local needs and aspirations. So I have doubts about spending another $50 million on some water features in a location where you already have very good facilities. And so we have to judge the cost effectiveness based on past experience. You know that the water fountain in Tsuen Wan, Ma Shan, and other water fountains, there were such water fountains. They were all taken out. And I don't want to just talk about the Sha Tin water fountains. You know that it's an interactive now, as already very interactive. Do we want to invest even more on water fountains? If you want to attract tourists, well, you need to have other facilities. It's a 15 or 20 minutes of walking distance from the cruise terminal. Well, there were bus loads of tourists going there, but now after the initial hype, it's very quiet now. So we have to judge that since we are going to invest so much on water fountains, and in the future, $1.8 million is needed every year. If we don't have so many visitors, then the effectiveness will be diminished. At present, the promenade there is already is equipped with very good facilities. It's already very good. That's why I have doubts about this fundamental doubts about this project. What are your questions? Well, my question is that about the future maintenance cost, $1.8 million. I think that it would be much higher than that in the future. Well, that's not a question. That's just your comment. I think it's a comment repeated about the maintenance cost. Mr. Fan is saying that the promenade is already in very good shape now. The utilization rate is very good. On a daily basis, we have 10,000 people going there. These visitors that are mainly young people or adults. There are few children coming with families because the promenade is popular as a jogging trail, but there's little or nothing to attract children. If you take a child to the promenade, and he may be interested, but very soon there's nothing more to attract or retain the interest. So we want to have some water fountains to attract the people coming in families. Mr. Luk Chung Hong, 4 minutes. The discussion for the last 2 meetings have prompted me to rethink the meaning of or purpose of signature projects. I have been the district councillor for 4 terms, and the district council was given no money to spend on things needed by the district. So that's why there was the initiative to introduce the signature projects in the districts to build something, to do something for the communities. Although in terms of the funding procedure, funding approval is required by this council, but the decision making should come from the district councils. I don't think we should members here should try to override the decision of the district councils, which are supposedly the autonomous. And there's a concern about noise, nuisance. We should not just target the dancing women seen elsewhere. It's a potential problem of any open space or parks managed by the LCSD. Can the LCSD prohibit the use of powered loudspeaker? If it's not allowed, the use of loud hailers are not allowed, then the noise generator would be lower in volume. LCSD for Kowloon East. Thank you, Mr. Look, for your questions. Can we make it a rule that no loudspeakers using electricity power will be banned? Well, so far, at the present moment, we don't have such a rule to prohibit the use of such loudspeakers. That would involve further studies and indeed amendments to the law. Mr. Chu Hai Dik, 4 minutes. I have 2 ideas here. Today, we have government officials, mainly government officials, here to lobby for the signature projects. And I would say that even if these projects are vetoed by us, the government would launch these schemes itself. And Kwun Tong District will have another $15 million to spend if indeed the administration thinks this is a project that must be implemented. So I would like the district council chairman can rethink about this. I have to talk about, I have to rectify the figures quota, because there are two signature projects in Kwun Tong, and they are only talking about $15 million. Well, if the money is not spent on this project, they can carry out other projects. They have explained why they are not going to spend it on another project. If this is not project is not carried out as part of the signature project, and the government is anxious to get it implemented, the government can just implement the project using its own money, and the district council will have $50 million to spend on something else. My friend, Mr. Ching Chi Wai, wants to express this view. And even if we are going to have water fountains, we should think out of the box and go for a more economical option. He told me that the police spent $27 million on water cannon vehicles and with 3 jacks. With 15 jacks on each vehicle. And if the 3 police vehicles go there, and there will be 45 jacks of water at the same time in a display, or that would mean that we don't have to spend $50 million on this project, and the police will have its image improved. Now the jacks are directed towards the sky instead of at some people, and it's a show that everyone can enjoy. It would improve the image. That's a much more economical approach, and I believe it's also going to be attractive to tourists. You just want to make everyone relax, and that's why you make a joke. I think maybe you can ask a more substantial question on the first option. Please answer this question first. If the district council does not want to spend the money on this project, would the government still think that this has to be done under the Energizing Kowloon East initiative? Would it? Or even if this is carried out by the LCSD, the funding approval of this council is required, and the same questions would arise. Not many people object to having water fountains as other than the water consumption issue. Undersecretary, we very much like this project to be approved by this council, and funding approval can be given so that we can start the project and complete it as soon as we can. Dr. Jiang Chung Tai, second round, 3 minutes. I want to return to the modern Terrace project, the activity center project. If we look at enclosure Annex 2 to enclosure 2, we see some dimensions marked out there, but it's not very clear here. What's the size of this stage? I'll ask the ASD to respond to the question. Mr. Liu. The hall and the stage is of the size of 200 square meters. So hall plus stage the size of hall and the stage is 200 square meters. It seems that the dressing room is bigger than the stage. The stage is a mini stage, right? So you can't even accommodate a class of primary students on the stage. Mr. Liu, if you want the specific information, I have to check, but initially, at a glance, it's for 30 odd square meters. The hall is about 170 square meters, and the total is 200. So the stage is about 30 square meters. Can it accommodate a class of 35 students to take a photo? How it's used would depend on the organizer of the performance, but it would be a bit crowded if we have 30 people. Why is this controversial? Because it's very, very small.
And according to the plan, you deliberately have 2 levels, and you've inserted a performance venue here. We've heard some Wan Chai district councillors saying that there is a shortfall of these performance venues, and I agree. But this is actually a nano stage. When it is built, I'm worried that the Kai Fongs and the users of the facility will find this to be, useless, because the stage is even smaller than the penalty area in a soccer pitch. Well, all I can say is that we have tried to make optimal use of the area. Of course, if the venue is too small, then the event organizer or the performing groups can choose an alternative venue. Well, I think it's not a large hall, it's a medium-sized hall. I have the similar experience. There's a hall in the Sha Tin Town Hall. They have a smaller hall. I've actually staged many performances at the Sha Tin, recreational hall. What information are you seeking? If you don't have the exact dimensions today, could you give us the paper afterwards? We do have the dimensions for the stage. It's 10 meter wide, 6 meter deep. It can accommodate 250 people. According to the experience of the LCSD, a hall accommodating 250 people is not a small hall already. You have some black box theaters which may not even be able to accommodate 200 people. It can only accommodate 100. So a hall accommodating 250 people can already meet the needs of the district. So you don't need to supplement if you already have the dimensions. Ms. Aulok Hin, 3 minutes. Chairman, I would like to say this to the 2 district council chairmen. Indeed, there are many signature projects. If you don't try to impose it on the district, you can actually do it. The Southern District district officer have told us it was also submitted to this council, and they told us that the Kwun Tong District Council chairman was asked many questions and he was very upset when he left. But I don't think this should be so. If we have a consensus, we can deal with the problem. I know that you've discussed this among the 18 district council chairmen, that if we're going to have another project, many of you agree that providing service is easier than embarking on a works project. Now coming back to Wan Chai, I don't think you should say that the district councillor of the last term supported this project, and therefore the the point made by the present district councillor is not reasonable. Madam Young is elected by her constituents, and she represents the public opinion from her constituency. Now, without the subsidy, the $40 million subsidy from Jockey Club, you will not be able to manage. If you have $100 million to build a community hall, you should have other options. The Wan Chai District Council also criticized the government, saying that for the Caroline Hill site, there's no reason they should give you the information at such a late stage. Have you ever considered that that is also a GIC site? Why don't you use your will and build the facility in Caroline Hill instead? But now you still insist of building the community hall behind the Central Library, despite all the criticisms. But in the end, you're not really addressing the question of how we should, make optimum use of the GIC sites. The people who are despicable are the officials sitting in the front.
我想問兩個問題，第一就係
Regarding recreational or open space, indeed there is a shortfall. The pumping station on Harcourt Road will be relocated to Southern Stadium. Then I think you should be retaining the modern Terrace site and use the GIC site to build a community hall instead. And secondly, Chairman, if you let me ask the next question, that is dimensions or the specifications for the hall. If we're going to build a community hall, which do not have the same specifications as the others managed by the district, the Home Affairs Department, what is the difference, and how can you, do better? Mr. Ng Kam Chung. Thank you, Mr. Ao, for the question. Indeed, it is true that without the $40 million from the Jockey Club, we cannot build this community hall. Secondly, I think it's been mentioned earlier that we have conducted our surveys. It was not just a consultation exercise. We conducted a very in-depth study, and we found that 100% of the councillors of the last term of the district council had given their support for the project. We also asked all our district councillors before we came to the Home Affairs panel here, except for one, they all supported this project. We are all accountable to our kai fongs and the local organizations. They're asking us why up to now we still don't, the community hall is not yet built. And for the Caroline Hill site, when the district council conducted this consultation, we also asked whether we could build, a community center there, a civic center. But we're still at the consultation stage yet. When we mentioned the regarding Leighton Hill Community Hall, it took 11 years. For Wan Chai, there were two constituents, Victoria Park and Tin Hau, which have been added to the Wan Chai constituency. And there is a very even, bigger demand for a community hall in the district. Well, I think that has been repeated many times already, so I think we need to move on. Charles Mock, I think we'll have to wrap up after Mr. Mock has finished with his question. I'm sorry the two district council chairmen may need to come here yet again. For the signature projects, I agree with Mr. Lok Hin. It's not that you should push it, and if you impose this on us, you will succeed. And even if you succeed, it may not really be, have a desired effect, because there will be a lot of opposition. If the decision not to be wrong, and after the facility is being built, and the public feels that it's not being able to help them, then in the end, for the district councillors, you may have to face the criticism of the opposition. So this is actually a very good opportunity for you to think more carefully same for the government, as to whether we're giving you the time to reflect further on this. I have with me the findings of an opinion survey by the East Kowloon Concern Group, when they asked whether the residents agreed that we should spend $50 million on the music fountain project. 85% objected. You can say the polls organized by some groups, you do not trust their findings. But after you build the facility, I'm sure more residents will feel that you are spending so much money on this. Regarding where you want these signature projects to be placed, 45.4% would, for them, the first choice would want you to spend the money on medical care. 15% would prefer spending the money on environmental protection, projects. 9.7% environmental improvement. And the Kwun Tong water fountain project is the least environmentally friendly. We're already, having a water shortage. It's going to waste water, and so it's not really helping the residents. It's going against their aspirations. Although this study was done in 2015, I don't believe that the residents now would prefer the water fountain instead. You see the drought we are experiencing now. To tell people to enjoy the water facility there is not right. So this is not a project that Hong Kong should build, and therefore, now that there is an opportunity for you to reconsider, why don't you make use of the opportunity to reconsider it and really listen to public opinion? And don't just, for the sake of saving your face, proceed with the project just because you said that you would do it. Because in the end, I wonder whether you really understand what are the aspirations of the people. Could the chairman of the district council or the officials respond, please? So I'll ask the chairman to respond. Any supplement from the two chairmen? I have been entrusted by the district council to come here to explain to members about this project. So we have always been adopting a bottom-up approach. We actually, chose this project out of, a number of options. We've heard the public's views. For example, we are now expanding the United Christian Hospital to respond to the aspirations of the people. So the district council will work closely with the SWD and the Department of Health to ensure that we can better serve our residents. I don't think we have time left for another question, so I would therefore like to thank everyone for coming to our meeting today. Our next meeting will be held on the 11th of June. It will be held at 4:30. So please, attend. Please be punctual.